Hello, what's up and welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's me, your girl barrister NEZE, and this is NEZE Peperempe. In today's video, guys, we're going to be talking about renting in Canada. I believe that it is a very important topic because it is a phase that every new immigrant will pass. Well, maybe almost every new immigrant to pass that phase, except maybe you're a child of a politician who has chopped from the national budget and bought a house for you here, and you just stroll out and enter inside there. You might not understand that phase of renting, but typically, commonly, it is a phase that almost everybody would pass before they settle properly, get a good job, or get the job at all, and have enough resources and history to be able to purchase their own property. So it's a very important topic. So I'm going to be telling you everything I know about renting in Canada. I'm going to be relaying it to my own experiences, both good and bad. I'm going to be telling you everything you need to look out for in the contract before you sign any contracts. So I'm going to be talking both as a lawyer and as an individual that has rented in Canada, all right? So it's going to be knowledge plus experience. So sit back and let us dive right into this video. I'm also going to be telling you guys my mistakes, my regrets, everything about renting in Canada generally and as it pertained to me. There are different ways to get a rented building in Canada. For some people, they get it through renting apps like Facebook Marketplace or Rent Faster. There might be others. These are the two that I'm familiar with. If you know others, please drop in the comment section so those that are seeking such information can get them. But I used only Facebook Marketplace and Rent Faster. Some get their building or their rented apartment through rent agencies, property agencies that both rent, manage, buy, sell properties. Yes, they can also get you a rented place. While for some others, they get their rented apartments through referrals. So you already have family or friends in Canada and you are coming in, you call, oh please, can you help me find somewhere? So the friend refers you or your relatives refer you or even rent it on behalf of you, and you just go in very smooth. For us, it wasn't that way. It wasn't as easy as that. We came without having a place. We put up at Airbnbs and then we rented our property by ourselves. So it depends on whether you're lucky. Well, not just luck. Some people, even if they have such opportunity available, they'll prefer to land and see the place by themselves. There's some places you will see, you won't like the place. So for some people, even if they have people here that can help them get a place before they land, they would like to come by themselves and use their eyes and hands to get a rented place that they're of their own choice. So these are the ways that you can rent a place in Canada. What are the requirements for renting? Now, it depends on the platform that you utilized in renting. If you rented through referral, I have a friend that has a place to rent and I have a younger brother coming. That friend might not be strict with those requirements, so it might be toned down, it might be lenient, or it might be completely waived. But if you're renting from those agencies that I spoke about, the property agencies, or you're renting from a landlord that you do not know on Facebook Marketplace or Rent Faster, then there are some requirements that are a given that will be asked for. First, proof of income. So every landlord wants to be sure that you can pay your rent as and when due. And what is the surest way to guarantee that is by having a source of living, a source of income, right? So the first thing that you might be asked for is your offer letter or your pay stubs, your pay slips, as we call it in Nigeria, or a bank statement showing steady inflow of salary. So these are the three ways that you can show proof of income. The second thing that they would ask for is your credit checks. So remember the last video we spoke about being a delinquent, being a defaulter when it comes to paying your obligations as at when due. That can affect your credit score. Even as little as owing $5 on phone bill can put down your credit score very significantly, and it would affect you in no small measure. One of the ways that it's going to affect you is rent. For example, if you want to rent a place the agency will ask for your credit reports. They would run credit checks on you. And if they see that you are a defaulter, you are someone that does not meet up his or her obligations, they will not rent to you because you have posed yourself as a future liability for them. Then thirdly, they might ask for references. So they might ask for people that are already resident in Canada that can stand as a surety or a referee for you in case you default or you cannot pay up your rent. Sometimes the requirement for referees might be waived, but typically these three are asked. So now you might ask me, Neze, I'm just coming. I don't have a job. I don't have credit score. I don't have reference. How do I do? My darling, your guess is as good as mine. We had that challenge too when we came. Remember when I narrated my struggles with you guys, how we couldn't find a place because we didn't have the requirements needed, and we were going to rent faster. That one, you won't even see the landlord or see the name of the person that has the house. If we knew, we would have gone to Facebook Marketplace and perhaps sourced for houses owned by Nigerians. Perhaps they would be in a position to understand because they were just at that place some years back, right? They were in the same situation some years back. So maybe if we had gone to Facebook Market, because the platform Facebook Market is very different, you'll be able to see the landlord's name and all of that. Perhaps we could have been going to Nigerian landlords that may have given the house without requiring all of these. But we're going to rent faster, and it was mostly all these Caucasians, all these agencies that insist on following the guidelines to the letter. So we had serious problems getting a house because we didn't have all of these. Eventually we got a house through referral to someone that eventually referred to us. That was how we eventually settled. So it's usually a problem for new immigrants. So take note of that. If you have someone that can help you to get a house before you land or after you land, it's a lot better. So the next thing that you need to know about renting a house in Canada is that a security deposit is required. We do it too in Nigeria and back home in Africa. What do they call it back home? What's it called again? Caution fee. Thank you. Caution fee. But the difference in Nigeria is that the caution fee is usually very, very low. You might be renting a house of maybe 400,000, 500,000, and you might be paying 50K or 100K as caution fee. But here in Canada, the caution fee, also known as security deposit, is the same amount in rent. It's like 1 month rent. So if your rent is $3,500, your security deposit that will be held by the landlord throughout the period of your lease will be that $3,500. They will not ask you for $500 or $1,000. It is usually the same amount as the rent, 1 month's rent. So, having laid all of this foundation, what are the things to look out for to avoid, had I known, to avoid tears and sorrows? What do you look out for before you rent a house in Canada? One, but hey, before we dive into that one, have I mentioned to you guys that we have a new channel? We have an African folktale channel where I tell you guys beautiful African folktale stories that you can enjoy alone or enjoy with your children and your family. So if you need something that you can just relax, you guys know that we tell beautiful stories and we tell them the way you love to hear them. So I'm going to leave the link to that channel in the description box and pinned in the comment section. Join us there and enjoy. Don't forget to subscribe, watch our videos. You're going to enjoy our stories there. They are amazing with plenty of lessons. So back to this. The first thing that you should look out for when or before renting a house in Canada is the cost. I think this is a general principle. You need to factor in the cost of renting that building. I know that here rents are paid monthly, and you know how time flies. Before you can bat your eyelid, the next month is here. So if you put yourself in a tight spot where you are working your, I don't want to use that word, you're working your hands off, and at the end of the month, you take almost everything you've earned and dash landlord, you're going to feel very unfulfilled and very unhappy. You feel enslaved. So the general rule is that one should not spend more than 30% of their GMI on rent. GMI means gross monthly income, right? So you shouldn't spend more than 30% of your gross monthly income paying rent, because of course there are other expenses that has to be factored, and if possible, there has to be some savings from your earnings, right? So you have to consider the cost of the building that you want to rent. If you cannot afford a standalone house, of course, nobody should tell you that you should start with an apartment or a smaller space. And as you settle more and more, you can then go into somewhere bigger. By the grace of God, buy your own house. So first, the costs. As a newcomer, are you still changing naira to dollar with the exchange rate? You need to factor how much you have in your savings that can at least sustain you for, let me say, 6 months before you get a job. Just assume that 6 months, can I pay this rent for 6 months before I get a job? Very important. Secondly, proximity. Proximity to a whole wide range of things. So I would assume that it is not everybody that lands that is able to afford getting a car the next month. For some people, when they land, they have to work for some time to be able to save up money to buy a car. So you have to consider the proximity of this house to major facilities, stores, public transports, bus routes, train stations, and all of that. Because Canada is very big. Everywhere is far from everywhere. So you need to consider the closest proximity. Not if you want to buy bread, you can take Uber. You have to check, is Walmart close to this place? Do we have Dollarama close to this place? Do we have a bus park? So proximity is very important, especially if you do not have a car yet. Third thing that you might want to consider, that we considered very, very strongly, is neighborhood. Now this one is very subjective because to some people it might mean nothing, while to some others it might mean everything. There's some neighborhoods that are predominantly occupied by a certain group of people or race of people, which is not bad, right? Here everybody integrates, everybody socializes. It's a multi-dynamic society. But if it is important to you that you are surrounded by your community, by people that look like you, that if your children go to school, they will not be the only black child in the whole class. Or if they go to the park, it is not only, maybe, for example, only Indians all over the store, all over the park. Like we have a community in Calgary, Alberta. The core northeast of Calgary are predominantly occupied by the Indians. They are lovely people. There is nothing wrong with living amongst Indians. But for some people, their neighborhood matters to them. They want to have that feeling of association. They want to be surrounded by people like them. They want to be able to go to the park and their child will not be the only black person in the park amongst 500 other children. So if you want to live in a neighborhood that makes you feel at home, or feel, well, you can never completely feel at home. You're in a strange, you're in a foreign land. If you want to stay in a neighborhood, you know what I mean. If you want to stay in a neighborhood that, at least you can, relate with people around you, then you have to pay some attention to neighborhood when picking a place to rent. The next, safety. I find that, where I stay, the city I stay is a very safe one. I hear that some places that are very rough. My own environment, like my own city, most parts that I have gone to are safe and quiet. Nobody is disturbing anybody. But it is not everywhere that is like that. There are some places that are more volatile than others. There are some places in Canada that theft of cars are on the rise than others. Maybe shooting. There are some places that violence are more violence prone than others. So you have to factor in safety and how cool the environment is, especially if you're raising children. So before you rent a place, please do some investigation, some background checks on that environment before you even agree to renting. Another thing that you must pay very, very keen attention to is the lease agreement. A contract is a contract. And as long as it doesn't break any law, you are bound by the contracts that you sign. You are bound by these documents that you put your signature to, because that signature signifies consent. So before you rent any place, you have to, line by line, go through the lease agreement and ensure that you can abide by them. Some lease agreements have break lease penalties. Like mostly, the leases are typically 1 year. They're a duration of 1 year. And after 1 year, the landlord can choose to either renew or to terminate so can the tenant. So for example, you stay at a place for 5 months and you want to move, maybe because of your job or you bought a house or something, and you want to break the lease because it's a monthly lease. You now say, oh, after all, it's monthly. Please, I'm not staying 1 year again. I want to stay 6 months. I'm leaving next month. It is against the law. It's against the lease because you have already signed to a 1 year fixed term. So you have to check the lease agreement whether they are breaking penalties. Remember that the landlord is still holding your deposit and can fine you and deduct from that deposit that he has if you break the lease. You need to check the terms of subletting. Some people now can rent a full house like this, and I'm shooting in my basement. Without the landlord's consent, I'll now rent this basement and be taking money and be using it to supplement my lease. That's a sharp practice. And if the lease agreement expressly prohibits subletting the property to a third party, and you do that, that's a ground for revocation. Even pets. Some lease agreements might prohibit pets expressly. If you bring in a dog into that house, that is contravening the terms of the lease. So you need to be very careful. It's not just, oh, take agreement, sign. You just sign. No, you need to take it home. Tell the landlord that you need time to review it. If you can understand it, read and understand. If you need clarifications, ask the landlord. If you need further advice, forward to your lawyer or a lawyer friend or something for them to help you review and give their best advice, because whatever you sign, you are bound by. Another thing that you have to take note of are the lease conditions, which is like a branch of what I just said. And on this point, I'm going to give you my own personal experience. Now, when we came in, the lease that we signed had a clause that the landlord will come for inspection every 3 months. So just imagine in a 1 year period, just 1 year, the landlord would come and inspect the house, inspect you room for room, toilet for toilet, kitchen for kitchen, drawer and cabinet for cabinet 4 times in a year. That is not a fair clause. I don't think it's a fair clause. That is too much invasion of privacy. But it was a clause in the lease. And because we were desperate at that time, we didn't have luxury of choice. Remember I told you guys that getting a house was not easy for us. So we had to agree and sign to that clause, not because I didn't know the meaning, but because my hands were tied. So we agreed to that clause of every time inspection and invasion. And believe me, when the lease started, it was a sore point for us. Because before you know it, 3 months have come, landlord is sending mail, I'm coming for inspection. Every time you are cleaning, it's not like the house is dirty, but when a landlord, the owner of the house, is coming to start looking everywhere, you have to ensure that, hey, this one. So it was very uncomfortable for us. Very, very uncomfortable. Not to talk about other times that he has to come and check, oh, the tap, the this. So it was almost like every month the landlord was in our house. Very, very uncomfortable. Not to talk about other times that he has to come and check, oh, the tap, the this. So it was almost like every month the landlord was in our house. It was tolerable for us because we knew what we were getting into. I saw the clause, I reviewed it, of course, with my legal eyes. I saw it, I wasn't happy with it, but I still accepted it because I needed to leave the Airbnb and settle in. But just imagine someone that didn't see the clause because they didn't peruse the contract properly, and they had the choice, and they had to enter such a building and now have to be faced with such intrusion when they actually had a choice. So it will be more painful for such a person. So when I tell you, review your contracts, your lease contracts, please do. Every word. Please review the contract properly. So if you're not comfortable with a clause and you have the luxury of choice, you can decline going with that place and move on to somewhere else. Also, another factor that you have to put in is you have to consider where the landlord lives. This is not a formal requirement. This is a requirement that has come from experience. Experience shapes your thoughts and shapes your ideologies. Like, we lived where we shared a fence with the landlord. So, if you get what I mean, bam, landlord is looking outside the window. What's happening in my house? Do you understand? I will not advise anybody. I was thinking that this thing only applies back home. It's just that back home, because of the lawlessness, the landlord can overstep his or her boundaries. But the law checks such overstepping here. But it is still not a comfortable arrangement to live with your landlord. When I say with your landlord, I mean maybe like these 2-wing duplexes and you are living here, the landlord is here. That's peace of mind, that comfort, that relaxation, that's, freedom that you're supposed to, that you should enjoy as a tenant paying rent might be a bit compromised. And you might not even blame the landlord completely because it is his investment. So it is normal that wherever your investment is, your eyes will always be looking at it. So you have to consider, if you want to sign the lease, ask, will the landlord be here? Then you now weigh your options. Do I really want to stay in a place where the landlord will always be in my neck and always be in my face? You didn't park your car well. You put this one here, you put that one there. Do you want that? So if you have considered all of these and you have agreed to go with the lease, now there is a practice that many landlords partake in, especially for new immigrants. They'll tell you to pay a set bulk rent just to be sure that at least the rent is covered for some months before you get a job. We did the same. When we came, we paid 4 months rent. We paid in bulk plus security deposits. So that might also be a consideration. If you're finding it difficult to get a place as a new immigrant, you might want to make that offer. And if you have the resources, you might want to make that offer to the landlord and say, okay, I understand your apprehension. I am willing to pay 3 months rent or 4 months rent in lieu. So you can have that guarantee that, okay, this is covered, and at least within this period of time, I'll be able to continue. So when you have ticked all of these boxes and you're okay with it, you have signed the lease, you have your copy, the landlord has his or her own copy, it's time to move in. The first thing that you should do before moving in is to do a thorough inspection. Yes, you might have come to check the house out when you were looking for a place, but you need to do a thorough inspection. Check for pre-existing damage. Check the toilets down to the drawers everywhere. And if there's any damage or anything that is not functioning well, please take a picture of it, send a mail, document it, and bring it to the attention of the landlord. Don't go verbal, don't go word for word. Go via email, politely highlight those things that you met in a not too perfect condition. Because when you want to go exit, that is where you know that your landlord might not be your best friend. That's security deposit. You might hear we. Then another thing that you might want to do before you move in is your renter's insurance. It is not compulsory legally, but a lot of landlords will require that you insure, not the building. No, the building is for the landlord to insure. Renter's insurance is like the insurance for the person renting their private personal property on the premises. So in the event of fire, theft, and other emergencies, the insurance company can indemnify the renter, the tenant. So a lot of landlords will require that renter's insurance is taken. And believe me, for those that require this and put it in their contracts, they make it a condition precedent for move-in, meaning that he might want to withhold giving you possession without you fulfilling that condition of renter's insurance, despite you have paid your rent. Some landlords can be very nasty. They'll tell you that it is a condition precedent to move in. You have to do that renter's insurance before we even allow you move in. And another thing I forgot to mention amongst the things that you should check when renting is the age of the building. There are old houses and there's some newer houses. Some people do not like renting very old houses because they believe that they come with, age. When age comes now, it comes with different things. Oh, this one didn't work today, this tap is not working, this one happened, and there's always one maintenance or the other to be done. Some claim that the heating system is not as good as the newer houses. So I do not know your belief. I do not know so much about that. Let me know in the comment section if you have any experience or any knowledge around that. Do you think it's not advisable to rent very old houses? So you have to consider that too, if there's any advantages or disadvantages in renting older houses when compared to newer buildings. So having said all of that about moving in, the last thing we'll talk about before we bring this video to an end is moving out. So by the grace of God, you don't want to be a tenant forever, right? You're not here to work to pay another man's mortgage, right? You want to also be stable enough to buy your own property. Buy one, buy two, also get tenants too. Or for some other reason you might want to leave, maybe strained relationship, maybe you have changed your job, you want to move to a new place or a new province. There's several reasons why you might not want to renew your lease. after 1 year. At the expiration of the lease, and when the lease is determined and you want to move out, you might need to get a professional cleaner, like a move out cleaner. It's not like Nigeria that you just sweep and leave the house for the person. The person that is coming in after you will be the one to clean it thoroughly. No, over here, it is your job to leave the house in impeccable, pristine condition before you leave. Even painting. Back home, you leave, the new tenant paints. But over here, it is mostly required that you paint the house before you leave. Of course, you have to repair every damage made, every dent. The houses are wooden, so there might be 1 or 2 pokes and holes here and there. You have to ensure that you repair the building, repair every scratch, every stain, every dent, and leave the house just how you met it. It's not like back home that you can just pack your things, sweep, and just disappear. And I say, after all, security deposit is 50k. Make the landlord use that one, do what they want to. No, over here, the security deposit is big. So if you don't put the house in good shape, you and your landlord are going to have very serious issues. Even at that, from several people's experiences, they still say that getting that security deposit back from the landlord is like bringing out bone from the jaws of a lion, because the landlord would always find one thing or the other and expend the whole money on one repairs or one fixing after the other. There is always, no matter how much you spend trying to fix the house, the landlord would always find a reason why that security deposit will not get back to you. Let me know your experiences when it comes to that down in the comment section. But if everything is all well and fine, the law requires that the landlord returns the security deposit to you, and not just even the security deposit, including interest. So the landlord is not supposed to use the security deposit for his own business or put it in his own personal account. He or she is supposed to kind of invest that security deposit for you, so when they're returning it, it is returned with some interest. That is the law. So guys, yes, I have discussed everything that I know when it comes to renting in Canada and everything that I have experienced as well. If you are new or you are old or you are yet to come, share in the comment section what your own experiences are so far, or your own expectations if you haven't come. Have you had a difficult renting period? Have you had a difficult tenant? Have you had a difficult landlord? Let us share all our thoughts down in the comment section, and also our tips for those coming. So guys, yes, we have come to the end of today's video. If you're new here, you are seeing my face for the first time, or if you've been watching without subscribing, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, give this video a big thumbs up, drop all your comments down in the comment section, and stay glued because we have so much more coming your way. Don't forget to join our African Folktale channel, link down in the description box and pinned in the comment section. I'll see you guys in my next one. For now, bye. Mwah.